Hello guys, I hope you guys are doing well today. Now, I have a bit of a, dramatic discussion, because it is a bit dramatic, but it's only dramatic in the sense that it's a little sad. And that has to do with the fact of how I'm currently feeling with Tekken 8, right? I was watching a video on Blackheart's channel, right? And he was discussing how he currently feels with the game, and what he wants to do for the future of the game depending on how Season 2 would be like when they update the game. And basically what he mentions in his video, was that he does not like the current state of the game, and he wishes for it to improve. Of course, everybody wants to improve, but he doesn't think that in Season 2 they'll do anything significant to really warrant him to stay on the game anymore. If the game were to head to the direction where he thinks it's going to lead, where they will improve the game, they will address the issues with the heat system, with the interactions in the game, the casino feeling in the game feels like, the character balancing, and who knows, any other quality of life changes that they could do to improve the game in Season 2, he's definitely going to be making more content, and he is even thinking of going to tournaments, right? But again, he mentions that he doesn't think that it's going to be anything significant, because in the teaser trailer, where they showcase all of the characters and all their new moves and all that stuff, right? Not all of the characters, really, because they only showcase like a couple of characters, like 6 or 7 characters in the game, and they only showcase like maybe one new thing in particular. So I don't know if they are stating that every character is gonna receive like newer moves, like, you know, plural with the S at the end, or is it gonna be like one new move? But in the video we saw that in one particular instance, Jin performed a full crouch down forward 4, and he managed to do a Zen cancel that allowed him to, go into the stance and then perform any other attack right afterwards. This tells me that they're going to extend the casino feeling of the game, not just with Jin, but with other characters too. So more of this aggression that they're trying to add on to the game, as the game's all about the aggression, quote unquote. And that's not something that players want, to be honest. They want the game to be toned down on the aggression. There needs to be more defensive means in the game to approach the game with, instead of just, let me just throw out my attacks and just spam. The game is not in an amazing state, and I agree with Blackheart too. He also mentions that even though with all these patch updates to the game is not in a good state. No matter what you may think of the previous games before it, Tekken 7, Tekken 6, or Tag Tournament 2, or Tag Tournament 1, whatever the case, right? Any of the games that you previously played, this game has come out in a state that still felt that I was still in beta, in my opinion. In fact, I feel that during the release of the game felt better at certain circumstances, like the online felt better, the loading screen felt better, but now it just feels like the game is constantly having issues stuttering. It would just have issues where it would just crash normally for no reason whatsoever, right? Disconnects and all that shit. It just feels worse than it was when it released. And there's a bunch of other variables too in the game that makes no sense, like the core aspects of the game. When it comes to movement has been completely botched. It feels so much sluggish, I'm trying to say, like, it's such a sluggish movement system in comparison to, let's say, Tekken 7 or previous games before it. Then when it comes to side steps, people love to say that the side steps in this game have been buffed, and yeah, they are kind of buffed, but the tracking in the game seems to be also, comparatively buffed as well in the game, not just side steps. So it just feels like they did one step forward and then one step back with the whole system. They decided to nerf Korean backdashing in the game, which, okay, fine. They nerfed it. They tried to make it so that doing regular backdashes will be better than doing Korean backdashes. And in a way it is. Doing regular backdashes is better than having to do Korean backdashes, depending on the character you're playing as. But Korean backdashes still has its use, but the fact that they nerfed it in the game because of how it was in Tekken 7, or even in previous games, is so weird to me that they nerfed it. But then they didn't think of buffing the other aspects of the movement system. Like, yes, side steps have been buffed, but inherently they also buff tracking. And you can't tell me that they haven't, because there are already tons of clips on X, or Twitter as it used to be called, where players try to step moves in the game and they'll get clipped anyways, even if that's the side of the move that's weakest to. Or you have seen plenty of my clips online where I've done the same thing and I'll still get clipped anyways regardless of the circumstances. It doesn't make any sense, especially when the move is not homing. There's no indicator that's a homing move, but it'll still clip you to both sides regardless. That's just my bias there. I understand completely that some characters in the game have different side steps, which is another thing that I don't understand. Like Tekken 7 and even previous Tekken games, they were considered to be competitive games, like esports level games, but they didn't think of universally making side steps in the game equal to each other, so that there's no like weird variables in the mix that will make it more difficult for the character that you're playing as to have a different side step, so that way you won't have issues trying to step certain moves in the game. That is something that should be universal, but it's not. Every character is different between how they step in the game. And there's some characters that are just largely have really good side steps, like Lily and Alyssa are two characters. Not just them, of course, but those are two characters that have really good side steps. So why can they get the, the privilege of having good side steps, but other characters don't? It doesn't make any sense. And then there's also the issues with how consistency comes with combos, like how some combos won't work depending on some characters' body types or their hitboxes or hurtboxes, right? It doesn't make any sense. These are things that you have to look into extensively, just so that you don't make mistakes in the game, or at least try to lessen the amount of mistakes that you make in the game. I don't know, like, how is that a game like Guilty Gear Strive? And this is just an example I'm just trying to make here. In previous Guilty Gear games, there used to be a weight system for different characters, right? And what these weight systems were was that if you try to float a character up in the air from, let's say, a launcher of some kind, depending on their weight type, they would either float like a feather when you're attacking them, so they will actually, gravity won't pull them down too quickly. Let's just say that. And depending on the duration of your combo, that is. And then for other characters that were considered to be very heavy, like Pot or Naganiyuki as an example, their weight types would be considered to be like heavyweights or super heavyweights. So if you perform a combo against them, they will drop faster. So the combos that you usually would do on other characters with different weight types won't work against them. But then in the newest season, I believe it was season 2 or 3, they decided to universalize the weight types. So there's no difference between the different weight types. There isn't one particular character in the game that feels more like a very floaty balloon compared to a guy that feels like he's like a gigantic fucking boulder going down on the sky, right? It won't feel that way. It will feel equally. Now, depending on the hurt boxes of the characters, that will still be the same. Like how Pot is a gigantic character, so you can actually get extra hits off of that character in comparison to other characters that you may have fought against. So that is something that they've done to make the game, a lot less, confusing and make it easier for players to do their combos and make them more consistent. But in the case of movement in Tekken 8, or just in the series in general, they have been progressively making the movement worse. In each new iteration, they try to buff certain things and nerf certain aspects of the game, only to either make it worse or better, depending. And in this case, they've only made it worse with the movement when it comes to Korean backdashing. They inherently, supposedly buffed side steps, but it still feels like shit, because tracking in this game is bloated out the ass for no reason. So it just inherently makes side steps feel worse because tracking in the game is so high on a lot of the moves in the game. I don't understand the mentality of the direction of Tekken 8, in my opinion. If they just kept the movement from Tekken 7 and then buffed the side steps and maybe even make them more universal to the characters in the game, maybe with a few exceptions, like let's say Kuma, Panda, and Jack, which are big characters in the game, then yeah, you can make them have worse side steps, but give them something in return, like maybe they have better stances, which in a way they kind of do. Jack has the Gamma Howl stance that's kind of similar to Gigas, where he's able to armor up, and then the bears have a high crushing stance with hunting stance. So they have the qualities to, do something, because they lack that one other thing in their kit, in the core kit. But right now, I just don't think the core parts of the game don't feel, right. And this is why a lot of players also kind of have a tough time enjoying the game, because there's already so many variables they have to look into. A lot of characters have so many moves. They have to know what moves they can duck, what moves they can step, what side they can need to step, if the move can even be stepped or sidewalked instead. There's so many variables they have to check out, and that makes the game extremely difficult. Now, of course, they don't have to make the game super easy. That's understandable. They don't have to do that if they don't want to. But if you want the game to be competitive and you don't want a lot of these variables to get in the way, of the person's progression in the game, I feel like they should at least try to universalize some of the things in the game to make it easier. That's what I think. That's just my opinion. Now, besides that, the heat system, we already know that a lot of players don't like the heat system. At least mostly the veteran players, that they don't like the heat system. I, for one, am at the stance that I don't like the heat system at all. Like, I was just watching a video with the main man Sweet, right? He was making a video that he was playing Tekken 7, right? He was playing his main Kazuya, and he was fighting against, for what it looked like, a Lee specialist, right? And when I was looking at the matches, I enjoyed how seamless the fights were. There was no heat system, there was no heat burst that was just gonna be popping in the middle of the fight that would destroy the momentum of the game. There was no heat smashes unless you were using the rage drive, which is only used if you had low health, right? But not in the case of Tekken 8. You can use it whenever you want. Pop it whenever you want. You didn't see these two players using a bunch of spammable power crushes either. So that's another thing too, that the game felt smooth. It felt seamless. None of this shit that this heat engagers and heat bursting and heat smashes and all that shit. None of that was being portrayed into the game. It just felt like two players that knew how to play the game and understand how to maneuver around the other attacker. That's what I enjoyed about Tekken 7, but they didn't do that with Tekken 8, because now they added these features into the game that made it feel like every particular type of moment, somebody's either gonna pop a heat burst to stop you from engaging them, or spam power crushes, or try to use casino-like mix-ups that you can't really get away from because they're forced at you. I feel like if they tone down the heat system or change how exactly you activate the heat state, that can definitely improve the game. Allow the game to be like Tekken and don't have the heat system as a form of a get off me tool at any given time. But I doubt they'll do that though. They're not going to do that. I'm pretty sure what they will do is that they're going to continue enforcing the heat system in some shape or format. They may add some kind of defensive mechanics in the game, not like heat bursting, but something else entirely, that'll allow you to actually maneuver around these mechanics in the way. That way you may be able to then punish the aggressor in the game in a defensive manner, right? To where you can be aggressively defensive, I guess is one way to put it. I don't know if they will do that, but I just know that, and from what I saw from the teaser, there wasn't anything that was giving me any hints that the heat system was improved on. It just seemed like they was adding more casino-like mix-ups for characters that may be needing them, or they're just adding them just to add them in, like with Jin. So I'm not too sure whether or not the state of Tekken 8 is gonna be good when Season 2 hits, and that's what I'm currently feeling now. If the game is not heading in a direction where they're going to at least balance out the heat, buff out the core aspects of the game, like the movement and the tracking, nerfing the tracking, and nerf the characters that need nerfing, of course, the top 10 characters in the game. If they do nothing between doing so, and they're just going to incrementally, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, adding new nerfs to the characters in the game instead of just all around just adding a bunch of nerfs in Season 2 that characters need to be nerfed in, I'm dropping the game. Blackheart said the same thing. He's thinking of dropping the game, and I'm thinking of doing the same. And it's not because I hate the game. I enjoy the game. I still kind of enjoy the game, but the motivation is not there anymore. Like, I've been playing the game for a year now, and at the start, I've been uploading daily content. And now I'm at a point now that I maybe would upload every 2 days or maybe every third day of the week, because I just lost the motivation. I lost it. I don't feel compelled to make content for Tekken 8 anymore. And because of the fact that the game doesn't feel fun. It feels like a casino. I'm always stressing myself out, trying not to engage the opponent, and then some bullshit happens in the middle of the game that just aggravates me even more, right? And I can tell you that every other creator feels the same way in some shape or format. But the ones that are truly in love with the game, right? Like main man Sweet, he's in love with the game. VDX is in love with the game. Other well-known influencers and either professional players, they love the game. Or maybe they kind of have to love the game because, you know, they're sponsored. So it depends. But that's just, again, my opinion. But I'm in a state where I'm not sure whether or not I want to continue making content for Tekken 8 once Season 2 comes in. If Season 2, again, does not demonstrate anything particularly good for the health of the game, I'm dropping it. And if there is hope for the game, then I will continue playing the game 100%. So yeah, that's all I wanted to state. So if you guys enjoy what you listen to, I guess, then give the video a like, and if not, well, up to you. Stay safe, stay tuned.
Salute to all my fallen soldiers. I reminisce of a time gone. I never thought I would be in a war zone. Big salute, recipe to my man Tone. We got a club on, in other words, in the early morning. We used to get chicks in the suite. Casino comps in a large room full of drinks. It's worrying, now we out, let's take a ride. The suicide of a dry, yo, my brain fried. He was a true friend. I never thought it would come to an end. Just remember them good days. Hey, how much of my brother is his